Same page here. The first text is from the first book of the Hebrew Scriptures, Genesis, and it's from what we fondly call the creation story, Genesis 1, verses 26 to 31. Then God said, "Let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So God created humankind in God's image. Male and female, God created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth." God said, "See, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw everything that God had made, and indeed, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. So the traditional view of this text is that this passage paints a beautiful picture of God's world before the fall. Before sin entered the world, this is the way it was supposed to be, or this is the way it was. This is the way relationships were intended to be. Male and female, God created them. So clearly, sexual relationships as well are between male and female. God created humankind in his image, male and female. The text also says that man and woman were made to reproduce and to populate the earth. Be fruitful and multiply, it says. This is God's not just will, but command. So homosexuality had no place in God's perfect created order. God did not design it. God did not intend it. Homosexuality is one of the many evidences that sin has entered the world. Homosexuality is a sign of brokenness and fallenness, as evidenced by the fact that a homosexual relationship cannot be fruitful and multiply.
That can seem like a very convincing interpretation of Genesis chapter 1, where human beings, male and female, best reflect the image of God. Particularly when it's read that we are to be fruitful and to multiply, which would suggest that only male and females together can best reflect the image of God when they are fruitful and multiply. I can't help but wonder about several exceptions in that understanding of the first creation story. And I'm thinking about, how about the person who chooses or never marries? Is that person less an image bearer of God because that male or that female chooses, or for whatever reason is not married? How about a married heterosexual couple who choose not to have children or can't have children? Wouldn't we have to say, according to the view of Genesis 1 that you just heard read and spoken to, that such a couple then does not reflect the image of God as faithfully as a couple that has children? As background to this passage, you'll see on the bottom of the first page, Genesis 1 is one of the creation stories, and it presents creation as God being somewhat distant from creation. God speaks, and the world came into being. God speaks, and light comes into existence. God speaks, and animals and vegetation, and eventually male and female come into existence. Ask most people how many creation stories are there in the Bible, and they'd say one. It's found in Genesis chapter 1, but there are really two creation stories. The second creation story we're going to read at this moment. It's found in Genesis chapter 2. And before I read it, I just want to say you'll notice immediately that in the second creation story I'm about to read, God is more active, more involved in the creation story, more intimate with creation. These verses from Genesis chapter 2, "Then the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And the man became a living being. Then God said, 'It is not good that man should be alone.'" Underline that word, alone. "I will make a helper suitable for him." Another key phrase, "I will make a helper suitable for him." So God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and he slept, and God took out one of his ribs and closed up its place with flesh, and the rib that God had taken from the man, God made into a woman and brought her to the man, and the man said, "This at last is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. This one shall be called woman, for out of man this one was taken. Therefore a man leaves his father and his mother and clings to his wife, and they become one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked and were not ashamed." A couple key words in that second creation story that I think stand out to me as I interpret this passage. Verse 18, "It is not good that man should be alone." Man lacked community. Man lacked relationship. "I," says God, "will make a helper suitable for him." That word helper is a rather rare word in the Bible. It's used in a few other places. One of those places is in Psalm 46. "God is my refuge and strength, a very present help," or helper, "in time of trouble." And in that case, the word helper is a direct reference to God. Here, the word helper is a direct reference to the mate God is going to prepare for Adam. I think the issue in the second creation story is not about reproduction, as it seems to be, as it was presented in the first creation story. In the second creation story, the issue is community. The issue is relationship. It was not good, God sensed, for man to be alone. And God would break that loneliness and build that community around another creation. And in this case, it was Eve, a partner suitable for Adam. But I would suggest, and some may say that I'm stretching the interpretation here, the main point was God sought to create communities among people, to fill the loneliness, to create relationships, and to make intimate relationships possible for all people. The axis around which this passage turns, it seems to me, the second creation story, is we best reflect the image of God not when we reproduce, but when we find suitable partners, suitable helpmates. That may mean male to female, but it may mean male to male and female to female.
So so this is how it'll go. I'll be
Yeah.
biting my tongue until it bleeds. And so I wonder, at this point, are there any questions for clarification? Can you hear okay?
Yeah, first of all, can you hear that?
Okay.
Good, okay.
Good? Okay, good. So we're going to go to the next Genesis story.
May I ask, how many of you did know that there were two creation stories? Quite a few of you did, but most people don't know that two creation stories. Isn't that interesting? It's,